On your Friday episode of Locked On Raptors, after a narrow loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, we simply must declare the Raptors are fun bad again.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Friday, January the 10th. And I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can also join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. It's free to join. Great place to come hang out, talk ball with the sickos, just like you who love the podcast. You can also subscribe for free to the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. Just go to the QR code on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on audio, go to the link in the description of the podcast. Click through, put your email address in, and you will get the Locked On Raptors newsletter to your inbox for free every single day. 5 days a week of me writing original stuff. You got Katie Heindel 4 times a week, Michael Shearer once a week, Josh Lloyd as well with his fantasy tips to help you win your league. There is zero downside to subscribing, and I very much appreciate it as we are pushing towards 1,200 subs. You freaks, I love you all. The team is terrible, and yet we're keeping this train rolling. All right, let's get to it. On today's show, we're talking about the Toronto Raptors falling to the Cleveland Cavaliers 132-126 in the most fun Toronto Raptors game in quite some time. There were some signs of life in that game against the Knicks on Wednesday. The first half in particular, very encouraging. The starters winning their minutes, and they carried it over to this game against the Cavs, where they damn near did the thing and took down the best team in the NBA. Yes, Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing. That's part of this, but the Cavs are really good. And a part of why they're really good is because they've got a whole bunch of really good players. Darius Garland, obviously fantastic. I'm sure we'll talk about him at some point, and how the Raptors really did not have a clue how to guard him, which is, hey, a thing. He's very good. They went up toe-to-toe with the Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen Twin Towers, and I think fared pretty well, all things considered. We will get into all that on today's show. We're going to talk about the starters and how they fared, get to the good, the bad, and the but we should start with just an acknowledgement that this is all we're asking for right now. The Raptors are 8-30. They're not good. They're probably going to win like 20 games this season. It is a long haul of a year for not a whole lot of sort of win-based enjoyment. But that's okay if they're playing games like this, which I thought showed lots of signs of progress, which showed lots of signs of reasons to feel optimistic about the mix of players they have on hand, the youthful players they have on hand, the fit of their best players. The offense kind of got itself rolling in this one. This was a game where the Raptors gave a damn. And if you give a damn and you lose to a good team, all you got to do is tip your cap to the good team and say, hey, that was fun. We enjoyed it. It was a very enjoyable time. And look, the start of the season, my one goal for the year that I thought the Raptors should have, that I actually thought was going to be the case, and very much was the case for the first 20 or 25 games, was just be fun bad. Be the enjoyable kind of bad team that you don't feel like you're wasting away your nights watching on regular season evenings in January. Last night was a regular season evening in January, and I had a rollicking good time. And I think a lot of people who watched this game did too. It's all you can really ask for when a team stinks and when a team doesn't have a whole lot of talent to carry itself to a bunch of wins. We know the adverse circumstances this team faced during December with injury and illness, and an injury on top of illness, and a really tough schedule. I think that was never super representative of what this team is actually capable of. And we're seeing over these last couple games that there are these little things that are going to provide sort of forward propulsion for what this group is, even if it's not resulting in wins. Scottie Barnes is chief among them. I thought Scottie Barnes was awesome in this game. And I think he was the guy who kind of most gave them a chance to hang tight with a really excellent basketball team in the Cleveland Cavaliers. 24 points, 10 boards, 8 assists, 3 steals, kind of doing his thing defensively again, where he is just a fixer, a mess cleaner, and really helps out on the back end. Big time event creation, 3 steals in this one, and just like is everywhere, is rotating with reckless abandon. He's captaining the defense. You can see him on the floor calling things out. You can hear him just through the broadcast, like telling a guy, close out, rotate there. Like he's talking, he's in tune. Even on the bench, there were sequences where you kind of flip over to the bench, the broadcast did, and he's there calling stuff out to the other end of the floor for the defense. That's what you want to see from Scottie Barnes, kind of taking command of things. And I thought in this game, he very much did that. And on offense, I mean, look, he's kind of really fallen into this mid-range assassin thing, and he's doing it damn well. Goes for 24 points in this game, 11 of 20 overall, 11 of 18 from 2-point range. He's shooting a career best 56% from 2 this season. That's awesome. He's shooting he's like 75% at the rim, even though he's not getting there a huge amount. He's shooting really well from short mid-range in the mid-50s or low 50s, wherever it's at right now after last night's game. Either way, that mid-range is his office, and the counters he's building into that mid-range jumper that he's getting to from, 12 to 15 feet, that's been automatic of late. You're seeing those counters now seep in, and it's all only going to mean good things for Scottie Barnes as an offensive player. We saw it last night. Evan Mobley guarding Scottie Barnes on a drive. Scottie kind of pumps, gets Mobley to step, and then all of a sudden, little pirouette, and he lays it in. Like, that is Scottie Barnes figuring out how to weaponize this thing he's found that's a real strength and turning it into productive offense for the team, even though it's now being schemed for. We saw it with Jonathan Isaac in that game against the Magic last week, where Jonathan Isaac knew the turnaround jumper was coming. He got out of his feet, totally jumped out of his shoes, and Scottie Barnes with a beautiful step through and bucket. Like, that's the sort of progression, the layering in of things you need to see from player development or through player development. And I think we're seeing it with Scottie as an offensive player right now. The threes, as I very much suspected, way down in volume now that Emmanuel Quickley is back. I never was really concerned about the super high volume of threes just because it felt not representative of what his actual role will be when the team is whole. We're seeing that come back to earth a little bit. It'd be nice if he can knock down some of those catch and shoots for sure. If they can fall. He hit one foot on the line 3 last night. That was like a pull up. Maybe not one of the best shots he took all night, but it went in. It ended up being a 2. Either way, I think Scottie Barnes' offensive progression, 8 assists in this game too, like creating without having to be the lead guy all the time and still diamond dudes up. A few beautiful assists in this one. I thought Scottie was really encouraging. And that Mobley-Scottie duo, man, like watching those guys go toe-to-toe, it feels like every game they play, one of them gets the better of the other, and they're both really good in the same time. I know there's this constant urge, and I think Eric Koreen wrote about this over at The Athletic today. I haven't read it yet, but I saw the headline, basically sort of just celebrating the idea of these two guys drafted 3-4 in 2021, going toe-to-toe, and still there being a whole lot of book left to be written on those two guys and who's the better player, who's the better fit on a good team, et cetera, et cetera. Mobley's got the edge this year for sure, but Scottie's doing a lot of stuff to make you feel pretty good about where he's heading. And it's been a lot of fun to watch him kind of figure out this new mid-range game for him, and sort of the next steps to come from that are going to be fascinating. Beyond that, I thought in this game, the offense as a whole really seemed to find itself. It really felt connected. And you're still seeing some things we'll talk about a bit when we get to the starters. Like, there's still some jankiness, still some timing stuff to sort out. But for the most part, I thought the Raptors offense really cooked in this one. 117.3 offensive rating in the half court against the Cavs, who are a top 10 defense. That's awesome. The defense for the Raptors, it got carved. And, I think some of it was just really good shot making by the Cavs, and the Cavs being the league's best offense and being tough to slow down. I thought the Raptors did a lot of good stuff on defense in this game and some not good stuff, which we'll get to. But overall, the crispness with which the offense ran, there was a section of this game where the Cavs zoned up, and usually zone is death to the Toronto Raptors, and the Raptors just kind of passed the hell out of it. It was great. You got movement and sort of big-to-big passing and getting it deep and then swinging it back out. Emmanuel Quickley kind of weaving his way through bodies to get easy buckets at the rim. Like, really nice stuff to see. The connectivity is coming around there. I was a big believer in this offense coming into the year. I think I picked them to finish in the top half of the league. They're not quite there right now. I think they're 24th as of right now, so it's not gone entirely to plan. But the skill sets the Raptors have on hand when all their best players are available are conducive to productive offense. And the way they run their offense, which I've said this before this week, and I'll say it again, they are number 1 in the NBA right now in location effective field goal percentage, which is the quality of the shots they're getting essentially. What would they shoot if the guys taking the shots they get were even hitting at an average rate? And they are number 1 in that department. And as they get healthier and more in tune with one another, now that they are healthy, I think we're going to see that kind of the effective field goal percentage, which has been very bad all year, come a little bit closer. They're not going to be number one in effective field goal percentage because they're not that talented, but something a little more sort of befitting of their excellent shot chart certainly feels ahead. And yeah, I just, they're fun, man. This was an entertaining ass game. There's stuff you can nitpick. We will do that coming up in just a second here when we talk about the starting five and the defense in particular, and Emmanuel quickly maybe not having his best game, but overall, an absolute blast of a game. And look, the bench, forgot about the bench. Chris Boucher, Jamal Shead. It's a wonder what happens when you have a starting five that's competent, that, holds serve at the very least, and then you couple it with a bench that doesn't miss any shots. Chris Boucher and Jamal Shead in particular were fantastic in this game. We'll talk about them coming up a little bit later on as well. But just a lot of fun from the Raptors in this one. All you can ask for. They're back to being fun bad, hopefully, baby. If they could carry this over for a couple more games, I think it's easy to declare they're fun bad again. And the next couple months of basketball before, tank season sets in should be pretty fun to watch and pretty interesting to watch as far as gaining real valuable information about what this team has. We're going to come back on the other side, get into the starters and their good moments, their less good moments. Grady Dick, defense on Darius Garland, Emmanuel quickly. We'll do that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by TurboTax. Intuit TurboTax, that is. Are you tired of endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. Look, I am someone as a lifelong freelancer. Taxes are a nightmare. I don't like doing taxes, but TurboTax makes it super easy for me to do even my extremely difficult taxes, and they can help you as well. Taxes don't have to be complicated and stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions, whatever it might be. Whether you've got one form or 20, TurboTax experts give your taxes undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You don't have to lift a finger. You'll get peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Back at it here on your Friday edition of the Locked On Raptors podcast, closing things out for another week as we send you off into a weekend where they take on the Pistons on Saturday. Can they get their second road win of the season? They're 1-17. They are in historically bad road territory right now. A win in Detroit would be nice. The Detroit Pistons slightly above 500. I don't buy it. Anyway, we'll save that for Monday. The game against the Cavs, the starters. Let's kind of make this a bit of a recurring check-in, shall we? Because I do think watching how the starting lineup fares with one another is one of the bigger and more important things to watch down the stretch here. Obviously, all of the most important players for the future of this franchise, the guys who carry the hope for what's to come, are in the starting five. How they interact with one another, pretty important. Tail of the tape from this one, they do not win their minutes like they did against the Knicks. They were a -4 in just under 12 minutes together. They did not get a ton of run because Grady Dick got the quick hook a couple of times, particularly in crunch time. We'll get into that. Chris Boucher having a dazzling performance, which we'll talk about a little later. That was super fun. And I think it was warranted that he got some of those Grady Dick minutes. Probably would have been Ochai Agbaji minutes, frankly, if he were healthy, but he was not. And so Chris Boucher gets the benefit of Grady Dick not playing super well. I thought Darko was right to play around with that again. I think it was a smart move. Grady had some struggles in this one. Those offense looked a little more easy in this one, and that was nice to see him, have a night where he didn't have a crooked, bad shooting line. That was nice. But yeah, -4 overall in their 12 minutes. I thought, again, the offense looked really good. I think they looked pretty crisp, and that's with, again, some stuff that they're still kind of figuring out, particularly Scottie Barnes, Emmanuel quickly, pick and roll stuff in particular. You saw there were a couple sequences of Quickly's got the ball up high. Scottie's ready to come set the screen, and he's waiting for Quickly to kind of move into it, and they just didn't quite get the timing right. That stuff's going to come. That stuff comes with reps and familiarity and playing with one another for a long time. All told, over the last year or so, these guys have played, 20 games together? Something like that. Less than that. This will come. I'm not concerned about it. I think their skill sets are too complementary for it not to eventually work. And I think, the inverted pick and roll stuff is going to be a great thing once they get it rolling too. But yeah, I thought in this one, overall, even with those little moments of, okay, the timing's off there, or two guys are cutting to the same spot and kind of getting into the motion of the offense a little quicker, I thought they were really crisp. I thought they were getting good looks. And I thought we saw a thing that I talked about earlier in the week, which was it felt like every individual action in the first couple games with Quickly back was kind of happening in its own little silo. It's like, all right, we're running a pick and roll here, and this is how we're going to finish this possession. Or we're running a Scottie mid-range look here, and that's how the possession's going to finish. And it didn't feel like they were tying together actions very well to sort of create these full, robust offensive possessions that are making the defense think for longer than a few seconds and for more than just one action to cover. And I think they started to do that in this game. And I think a big part of it was Jakob Poeltl working from the short roll. He had a couple really nice passes out to the corner. I think RJ Barrett hit a couple threes off of them. And I just think they were, even Quickly had a couple getting downhill and pick and roll and then swinging it to the other side, either a drive or a shot, whatever it was. Like they were tying these little actions together to make it more of a sort of full product on offense. I think when I think about the Raptors offense, I think the sort of peak that you're shooting for is something like the Utah Jazz during the peak Quinn Snyder, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert era, where that offense was never like one of these offenses that's going to come down and sort of size you up and mismatch hunt and kind of play isolation ball. It was really all about let's run 2, 3, 4, 5 things. So by the end of the clock, the defense is exhausted from thinking so much, and we're creating an awesome look somewhere. I think that's sort of the grand vision for the Raptors offense. This is what you have to do when you don't have sort of a top end of the tier, great offensive creator. Maybe they find themselves one of those in the draft and it changes the context of the offense. But for now, this really does feel like it has to be a bit of a meat grinder for teams. And having multiple actions layered on top of one another is how you accomplish that. Having connective pieces that are actually doing the connecting is a big part of how you accomplish that too. And I think we saw that more in this game. Again, 123.1 offensive rating for the starters in this game, much better than their 105.9 against the Knicks the night before. And I continue to think, man, the starting lineup is going to put points on the board. How they defend is, of course, going to be the big question. And in this game, left a little to be desired. I don't think this was a bad defensive game in terms of process necessarily. I think they maybe even got beaten on like fewer straight up blow-bys in this game than they did against the Knicks. Like there were a few times where like RJ Barrett or Grady Dick just got walked in that game against New York. Don't think that was quite the case here. There was a lot of stuff where like long rebounds kind of burn them. And look, you got to get defensive rebounds to close out possessions. That's part of defense, a really big part of defense, in fact. And they weren't super great there. They got, what was the offensive rebounding disparity in this game? Just 9 offensive boards for the Raptors, 16 for the Cavs. And so, yeah, like you burn yourself there. I think the first sort of shot defense was pretty solid for long stretches of this game. Less so down the stretch, which is where the starters came in. And I think that's important to get into here. The crunch time, first of all, getting to see the Raptors starters playing crunch time, aces, great, awesome in my books. Very important minutes, very important actual real reps to see what you got with this group and to test its mettle. And it kind of failed in this example. Like that, this was the stretch of the game that they lost as a unit, right? They were pretty good in the first half. Third quarter, I think they won most of their stretches together, if not all of them. Certainly the start of the third quarter was really strong. And I think, overall they were on track to win their minutes. And then they come into crunch time and Darius Garland goes nut. And the Raptors defense kind of really, really flails in some sections. Again, it's tough. Garland's awesome. The Cavs are incredible. Their offense is a machine. But I don't think the Raptors did themselves any favors, especially with the starters out there with Grady Dick. Darius Garland is awesome. He was giving them absolute fits in this one, and they didn't really have great ideas of how to slow him down. I think eventually what they got to near the end when Darius Garland hit that crazy sidestep, step back 3 over Scottie Barnes, like putting Scottie in his length on Garland was the move. I think they got to it maybe a little bit late. This was after they pulled out Grady Dick and put Chris Boucher back in to close the game. And by then the Chris Boucher magic, as it tends to do in fourth quarters on games where he's going crazy, had kind of worn off. He had that really bad air ball. But I think the defensive stuff from Grady in this one and just sort of the plan they had with Garland, it was tough. I mean, they were running screening actions with Grady's man down the stretch. They were very clearly trying to incorporate Grady Dick into the main offensive set to take advantage of him. And the Raptors, I think, they didn't quite figure out the best coverage for that to sort of cover for Grady. And that's why he ended up getting pulled out of the game. But Grady wasn't doing himself any favors either. Like, they were trying this, like, were they trapping? Were they hedging? You couldn't really see because it was kind of non-committal from Grady. But the big problem with Grady in that situation, he was coming up to the level of the screen in those pick and roll spots, and it was usually Scottie Barnes kind of working with him. And like in those situations, it was just like Grady was kind of half-assing or he was kind of like, it was either half-assing a trap or like over-assing a hedge. It was kind of weird. And it just left these gaps that Garland was able to punch so easily that it just kind of left them without a hope in hell. And it's tough, right? Like, Grady's learning on the fly. This is what these minutes are for. This is what crunch time basketball is about when you're a young team. It's figuring out how you win these games, how you win these games, who's viable in crunch time situations. Like I said before, I think Ochai Agbaji probably gets the Grady Dick minutes in this situation if he's available, and maybe they fare better against Darius Garland and they're not picking at the matchup with Grady Dick quite as much. But yeah, we saw it, Garland getting downhill. The Max Strus 3 was very much because Scottie Barnes had to shade over in that situation when Grady kind of came up too high, and he had to try to deter the drive. And then all of a sudden, Max Strus is open, and boom, it's a 3. Like, that's the power of Darius Garland when he's got that thing on a string. Like, that handle's incredible. He's able to punch little gaps, but they weren't giving him little gaps to punch. It was big, wide open chasms he was able to just kind of slide through and then create from the middle of the floor. That's tough stuff, but you learn from that, right? And you're going to get burned by Darius Garland sometimes. He was awesome in this game, 40 points. And look, he very much won the point guard battle in this one. The Raptors really could have used some Immanuel Quickley magic in this one. And if you're talking about things from the starting lineup that weren't so great, Immanuel Quickley falls under that as well. This was not a great IQ game. And look, I kind of understand it from like the 2-point perspective. The Cavs have gigantic trees around the rim, and it's maybe not even the wisest thing in the world for Quickley to go sort of parading into the paint trying to score over those guys. That's not really the way you do it. This is where Scottie Barnes comes in, because Scottie can hang among the trees and score. This is the trade-off that you have with Quickley and Barnes as your 2 best offensive players. The issue is I just don't think he was aggressive enough with the 3-point volume in this one. Like, this is a game that really could have used his spacing kind of above the arc to just kind of pull the top off of the defense. And we saw it a couple times where the Cavs were very clearly worried about the pull-up. Evan Mobley comes up super high in pick and roll. They had the middle of the floor open for rolls and cuts and things like that. They got a few good things out of it, but Quickley just didn't really optimize his threat with the ball in his hands. And look, I don't think they had the ball in his hands that much down the stretch either. It was a lot of Scottie down the stretch, which, hey, fair enough. He was cooking. There's maybe some more balance you can find there, but they weren't really Quickley wasn't really taking advantage of sort of the moving around off ball stuff either, right? Like, he wasn't really getting himself in position for wide open looks. I thought he was fine overall, like in terms of playmaking throughout the entire game, but offensively, just like not quite enough juice from him in this one. And if he gives you a little bit more juice, then maybe it's a different result. Again, he's still working his way back. I'm not concerned. There's a long runway here for Immanuel Quickley to take lumps and improve from them. He took some lumps in this game. This was not his best performance by any means. And look, I don't think anyone fared well trying to guard Darius Garland. Quickley, even Davion Mitchell got burned a few times. RJ Barrett got burned. Grady Dick got crossed over. Like, this was not a game in which anyone really had a clue against Darius Garland, but you'd hope that as your highest leverage guard, Quickley would be able to kind of hang there a little bit more. Again, got to improve. This is what this is all about, right? Like, the guy that Quickley is today is not the guy Quickley is going to be in 2 months or in 8 months or in a year or in 2 years. Like, this is all player development. This is reps. This is growing and learning on the fly. And Quickley, again, he's got a handful of games as the lead guard of this team. It's still a work in progress, and you hope he can kind of tap into a little bit more, but not a great game for Immanuel Quickley in this one by any means. And we will come back on the other side and round things out with the good, the bad, and the we're just going to talk about Jamal, Shead, Chris Boucher, and how awesome they were, and how not good Kelly Olynyk was, which kind of gave way for Chris Boucher to do his thing. We'll do that coming up in just 1 sec. Today's show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did you know Rocket Money can help you get rid of the subscriptions that you're subscribed to but totally forgot about? Yeah, it happens to a lot of people. I sign up for stuff all the time for one-time use and then completely forget. During COVID, I signed up for an e-card website and I was paying like $45 a month for e-cards for like 2 years because I forgot to cancel it. And I sent one e-card to my sister for her birthday. Yeah, not a very good use of my money, but Rocket Money could have helped me find that if I was a user of it at the time. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $750 a year using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. Like I said, I subscribe to a lot of crap, and sometimes I just got to get that out of my life. Rocket Money can help you with that. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Wrapping it up here, we got the good, the bad, and the the way we round out every episode of this here show on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. A thing I liked, a thing I didn't like, and a thing that's got me a little bit intrigued from the latest in Raptors hoop. Let's get to it. The good for me in this one, Jamal Shead. It's been a rough go for Jamal Shead of late. This was probably his best game as a pro. And no, he's not going to shoot 3 for 3 from downtown in every game, but that's all right. The fact that he's taking them and making them sometimes is a start for a guy who I think really is a viable catch and shoot jumper and some sort of massaging out the rookiness of his defense and his overall game away from being just like a really nice long-term backup point guard. I think he's got the juice there. There's just some stuff that needs ironing out. And the three's got to fall at least a respectable clip. And man, oh man, he was awesome in this one. Just like in a way where, the game against the Knicks quickly goes out and instantly it's just like a fall off for the team and they can't get anything going. In this game, Shead comes in and they just keep on rolling. The offense stays moving, stays humming, stays crisp. And yes, it's helped by the fact that Shead and Chris Boucher combined to go 15 of 21 in this game. You can't count on that every single night, obviously, but to see Shead bounce back from a really rough -21 effort against New York and have just a really steadying presence out there, doing some nice work cutting and driving and finishing. Like there's lots of stuff in Shead's package as a player that I'm a big fan of. And we saw all sorts of those things in this one. Still needs to work on the on-ball defense. Still a little bit foul. He just had the one personal foul in this game, but still a little erratic, a little overzealous. He kind of almost does like the rookie Scottie Barnes thing on defense where he knows he's a talented defender and he really wants you to know it. He's like all up in you and he's right in your face. And sometimes it burns him. I think a little more sort of a reserved approach and just sort of trusting in his smarts and his ability, the sort of quick twitch deflections and poking stuff free and getting in passing lanes just by being smart. Like that stuff is going to come along. Rookies are bad at defense. Rookie guards are bad in general. To see Shead have a game like this, super encouraging and a nice bounce back after a really rough one in New York. The bad for me, Kelly Olynyk was really rough, man. And look, I think it's a good thing that he did not get heavy run in this game. I think it was not his matchup by any means. The Cavs are a tough team for guys who can't rebound. And Kelly Olynyk right now can't really rebound. And 0 rebounds in 6 minutes, tough stuff. Chris Boucher, I thought, was a perfect change of pace to bring in. And look, Chris Boucher drives me absolutely nuts. His games where he's bad are truly damaging. He's a really bad defensive player when he's not locked in, when he's not sliding his feet, when he's jumping at every single half pump fake there is. But the games where he's hitting are super damn fun and really helpful when he's going off. They just kind of give this extra juice off the bench that the team badly, badly needs. And I thought it was totally the right call to give him the heavy minutes he got in this one. He was incredible. Ride that heater for all it's worth. And I think, to me, the way Kelly Olynyk's played, he's just not been up to the standard that he's been at in recent years. I don't expect Chris Boucher to do what he did last night every single night. I certainly don't. He's the most whack-a-mole player in the world. As we dubbed him earlier in the year, he's the most consistently or the most sustainably unsustainable basketball player alive. But when it's working, it's exhilarating. And I think right now he's showing he's playing better basketball than Kelly Olynyk. I would not be upset if Boucher just got Olynyk's minutes for the next stretch here. This is not like a high leverage thing, right? Neither of these guys who are in their 30s are going to be part of the long-term plans here. You're just trying to get capable, responsible minutes played out there by the bench. And I think Boucher might be able to offer that more than Olynyk. And I say this in his next game out, he'll get blown by 6 times and go 1 of 6 from 3, and we'll be right back to square one. But for now, ride it while you can. And shout out Chris Boucher. Really feeling this became kind of a second good, I guess. But Kelly Olynyk, not very good in this one. And I think it was right that he kind of got the benching he did. The is also Chris Boucher related. And look, I do not think that the concept of building up one's trade value with some good play in the month before the trade deadline is really all that much of a thing. Advanced scouts exist. Pro scouts exist. Teams know what players are. You're not surprising them by having a good stretch of basketball a month before a deadline. As much as Raptors fans understand the ups and downs of Chris Boucher's game and the things he does well and the things he does not so well, all of the other teams understand that, because all the other teams pay people to watch the Toronto Raptors and say, hey, that Chris Boucher, that's a whack-a-mole ass player. He does crazy things and he has great games once every 4 nights. And then a lot of times he's very damaging. This is not a secret. This isn't the 1980s where no teams had TV. Everyone knows everyone in the NBA. And it's I think just an insult to the concept of again, scouting to suggest that you're going to surprise teams and build up your trade value with a few good weeks of play before the trade deadline. That's just not how this works. That said, is Chris Boucher maybe actually the best pre-deadline asset the Raptors have? Bruce Brown's not playing well and makes a ton of money, twice as much money as Chris Boucher does. Kelly Olynyk not playing well and has money on his deal for next year. Davion Mitchell is not someone who's putting a team over the top. And the list of teams that need defense first 11th men, not terribly long when it comes to actual contenders. And I do not think Chris Boucher is some guy who's going to go make a contender, 5% more contendery. I don't think he's a guy who's putting a team over the top, but maybe a team that's light on depth tricks themselves into thinking, hey, maybe that's a guy we can go add to our team. I don't really know what you can get. Maybe it's a second rounder, but I don't know if you're getting more than that for any of the guys that the Raptors potentially have on offer right now. And so maybe, just maybe, Chris Boucher, having himself a bit of a heater here, does play himself into being the best pre-deadline chip for the Raptors. And look, I don't think it's a bad thing that none of these guys have crazy high value. I don't think all that much hinges on this deadline. This is not last year where, the entire fate of the franchise depended on what they did in the lead up to the trade deadline. This one is very much more of a, hey, if you can get some stuff, great. If not, guys are going to walk. You have a lot of money off the books this summer anyway, and it's fine. But maybe Chris Boucher, of all the guys the Raptors have on expiring deals who could be had at the deadline, maybe he's the guy that fetches you the most. Damning with faint praise, to be sure, but hey, if he's going to play well and some team is going to say, hey, we could use some energy and rebounding, I know the Nuggets get thrown around a lot, maybe, I don't know. Anyone's good against playing with Jokic, I guess, and having for the Nuggets just a ninth man who doesn't stink might be helpful. Again, in the playoffs, are you playing Chris Boucher and expecting good things? I don't know, but maybe some team thinks that will be the case. Maybe they think they can fix Chris Boucher. We'll see. Either way, really fun one from Chris Boucher, no matter what. We love these heaters. And as our pal Matt Shantz said on Blue Sky last night, shout out to Matt, a great Raptors internet friend. He's just it'd be kind of nice if Boucher got traded now, because then that could be the memory of him. The lasting memory of Chris Boucher on the Raptors is that absolute bonkers game he had against the Cavs going 23-12. Wouldn't that be a fun thing? Either way, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out, rocking with the show all week. Thank you for subscribing to the newsletter, which will have some words later on the draft and one Cooper flag. Yes, we are moving into draft time, baby. Is it kind of a piece written tongue-in-cheek and doing in line with a bit of mine? Yeah, maybe. Either way, Toxic Positivity Friday coming up on the newsletter on Friday. I guess I didn't do Toxic Positivity Friday here on the show. I mean, I was positive throughout, so I guess maybe that just applies, but I didn't fully work it into a segment, and I feel bad about it now. I feel derelict of my duty. But either way, you'll have TPF in the newsletter, so you can go and read that. Please subscribe. QR code on the screen, link in the description of the podcast, all that good stuff. And thank you so much for rocking with the show. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy Raptors Pistons. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Buckets.